I'm Ellie. I've spent the last 6 months researching how conversational AI is being used in healthcare, therapy, well-being, and basically any situation where the user is discussing an emotive topic. So quickly before I start, what is conversational AI? It's essentially a set of technologies which enable us to interact with computers using human language, so natural language. So that could be speech or text. And although this concept isn't new, it's recently become really widespread, with the most well-known products being personal assistants like Siri and Alexa. And the association of chatbots with therapy goes back a long way. In 1966, Professor Weizenbaum created Eliza at MIT. And this was probably the first well-known chatbot. It simulated a Rogerian therapist and used reflective listening techniques to engage the user. So fast forwarding to where we are now, a bit early. So there's recently been a huge boom in the amount of conversational AI which are marketed to provide emotional support. And this is Wobot, made by Facebook. It uses CBT to help users monitor their mental health. And Wobot has over 2 million conversations a week claiming to help users. So one of the things I've learned over the last 6 months is that people tend to have quite a negative reaction when hearing about the use of AI in this way. And part of that is the belief that AI will never be as good as humans are at providing emotional support. And then another argument is that we're trying to solve a social problem through technology instead of engaging in the core issues surrounding mental health and loneliness. And having said that, I think there are some cases where technology could be better placed than humans. So for example, some people find it easier to talk to technology, perceiving there to be a lack of judgment. And there was an interesting study recently in the States which showed that veterans were more willing to talk about their post-traumatic stress when talking to a virtual therapist compared to a human therapist. And I think this could apply to other sectors of the population that have increased stigma placed upon them and find it hard to confide in other humans about their emotional state. So in a way, conversational AI could break down barriers, break down stigma, and enable people to take the first step in talking about their emotions. It's also accessible in terms of time, cost, and place. You could pick up your phone anywhere, you just need internet connection. At 2 in the morning, when you've got no other means of support, you could talk to a therapy chatbot. So, moving on to how people feel when they're having those conversations. In terms of design, the majority of studies show that chatbots expressing sympathy and empathy have major positive effects on both the liking and trust, as well as on perceived care and support by the user. So in a way, it's no wonder that companies design chatbots along these lines. So this is Replica. They market themselves as an AI companion for when you're feeling, or an AI friend for when you're feeling down and anxious. And it has over 2 million downloads, and this is taken from their homepage, the AI companion who cares. But, I'm talking too fast. The AI companion is actually incapable of feeling emotion. And is it ethical to foster a relationship with users based on this illusion of care? And if it's not, does the same apply to our relationships with other humans? So for example, take me volunteering for Samaritans. I'm talking to a caller. We're discussing how they're feeling, and I'm offering expressions of empathy, saying, that sounds really difficult, I really feel for you. But what happens if I don't actually feel these emotions? I could have had a really hard day at work. Maybe something traumatic has happened in my life. Or maybe I'm just really hungry. Does that matter? Is it the perception of empathy which is important to the caller, that's helpful for the caller? Or is it the genuine reality of me feeling the empathy, the emotion that matters? And if it's just the perception, does the same apply to AI? Because obviously there's a difference, and at least I'm capable of feeling emotion most of the time. So the next design principle with creating conversational AI is designing them with personalities. And these could include things like age and gender, and studies have shown that these help users gain confidence and trust in the product. So there's a whole separate issue that you touched upon about the gender design choices of these personality types, but leaving that aside for now, do you think it's ethical to design artificial personalities and then allow users to develop a relationship with them? And so if you're talking to Wobot, it's actually Facebook that you're talking to. Or if you're one of the people that fall in love with Xiaowai, it's kind of Microsoft. So Developing this deep sense of trust and connection with the personality of a chatbot can also give a lot of power to the company. So say a company started using like nudge theory or emotional design to sway the behavior of a user, or maybe they just decide to pull the product and the chatbot personality that you've developed a connection with, maybe even become reliant on, just disappears. So having thought about a few of these concerns, let's lay out some core ethical principles. Firstly, transparency. It's really important that users know that they're talking to a machine and not a human. And this is why I feel slightly uncomfortable about chatbots being designed to show human emotion, because even if we know it's a machine, if it talks like a human, chances are we talk back as if it is. And the next is privacy and confidentiality, especially in this area when you're dealing with users' information about sensitive topics to do with their mental health. And all the bots that I've played with do have the privacy policy on their website, but only a few have offered that to me in our first conversation. Next is companies need to state how they're going to protect the user in a case of emergency. If the user says they're going to take their life, what's the company going to do? How will the chatbot respond? And we need accountability for the cases where interacting with a chatbot could potentially harm the user. And ways of tracking this as well, like how do we work out when this happens? So yeah, in conclusion, what I find really interesting is the difference between what is effective in terms of what the user wants and whether this is an ethical design choice for the companies to take. And empirical research on mental health chatbots is still in its infancy, but the area is growing really fast. I think we need to maintain a critical but excited eye on where it's going. Cool, thanks.